Okay, so hopefully you have created an account at the Social Science Reproduction platform. This is a lightning talk, so there's going to be a very short part where we're going to try to do a little hands-on. It's not essential, but could make it a little bit more engaging. Okay, so I wanted to basically do a very, very quick talk on one of the public goods that we have created at BITS, which is the social science reproduction platform. My name is Fernando. Most of you met me yesterday, and for those who were not in my lightning in my training, the motivation is very similar. Here we're trying to increase computational reproducibility. That's the aim. This was what I referred to yesterday, but I will just go quickly. The motivation is to think that the unit of scholarship, it's not the paper. The paper, it's basically the tip of the iceberg. It's an advertisement, and the actual scholarship is the complete set of development, the complete software development environment, and the complete set of instructions to create figures and tables or display items. This is called the Clairvaux principle. But another motivation to think about computational reproducibility, and I hope that it will be relevant to most, if not all of you, is that once you have done in the past, or you will do in the near future, a reproduction exercise in a class assignment, where in a typical course around any semester around the world, in an empirical or applied labor economics, social psychology, what have you, you have an assignment. So, an instructor will give you, please reproduce or replicate this paper. And in this exercise, you will generate knowledge. And that's an emphasis, a point that I want to triple emphasize. Why would you generate knowledge? Because you will start and you will go look at the paper. Okay, they assign me this paper. I chose this paper. I'll go check it out. Is there data and code available? There is more awareness. There's more emphasis on disclosing whether or not there's data and code available. However, it's not universal that every paper and every journal has a reproduction package for each paper. So when you as a student go and inspect either in the journal or in the author's website whether or not there is a reproduction package, and you verify that, that's knowledge. There is or there's not. That's knowledge that the person who comes after you could benefit from that. Okay, so learning about that, it's informative. Then you assess the reproducibility of a fraction of a paper, of the entire paper, a table, one figure, one estimate that it's in the text. And you say this is somewhat reproducible, completely reproducible, completely irreproducible. And again, new knowledge has been generated in that semester, in that exercise. In the process of doing this, you might have fixed some things in the reproduction materials. You might have fixed some packages, updated some packages, fixed file paths. Maybe you find like a little coding error. Maybe you added some comments and made it more legible. Again, you added value. You brought more knowledge to the existing paper. Moreover, you might have test the robustness of the findings, and you might have found that the findings are robust to slight variations that are not presented in the paper. Again, new knowledge, valuable. No way you're going to publish any of this in any paper as I have described it so far. The unit of preserving this knowledge until now has not existed, or there has not been a well-defined space to preserve this knowledge. Why? Because you at best you do a presentation or write a report for your instructor, and at the end of the semester this thing is done. You might, I don't know, post something on Twitter or something like that, but there's no way to collect this in a standardized and public and stable way. Okay, so and the key challenge has been for a long time standardization. What do we mean by something being reproducible? What do we mean by a fraction of the paper being reproduced? What do we mean by reproducibility relative to replicability, and so on? So that's the main motivation. The first motivation in general for computation reproducibility is to change the mindset as to what is the key scholarly unit. The motivation for now is to preserve the knowledge that you and your students and your colleagues are generating in a systematic way. So to put it, we're all tired, so just to wake you up a little bit, you have assessed a paper, you have put a lot of effort, you have improved it, you have done some robustness things, you have added a lot of value. There's so much effort, and the only thing you need to do, put it in there, and no. So yeah, so yeah, from a private perspective, you do score the goal because you get a grade or something like that. But from a public perspective, that is exactly that's the situation that's going on. You added a ton of effort, brought a ton of value, and then went away. The best gift would have been you don't even try, you just walk out or something like that. But I didn't find that. So yeah, as I said, the key challenge here is standardization. So we have developed a framework following the SCORE project from the Center for Open Science, where we're trying to move away from the entire paper and think of the paper as containing several claims. These claims might relate to each other, but we're trying to guide the reproducer into be very clear in saying what claim, what fraction of the paper are they trying to reproduce. So they're going to go within a paper, they're going to identify a claim. They can identify multiple claims. Within that claim, they're going to identify the table or figure or display item that supports this claim. And within this figure or table, what's the specific estimate or specification that contains this key result that they're trying to reproduce. So we want to guide reproducers and say, okay, this is what we mean by reproduction. And then we're going to walk them through stages, well-defined stages. First, selecting a paper. The paper selection stage is going to can be iterative because it could be a case that there's no materials. And if there are no materials, you are suggested to go look for another paper, but to leave a little bit of a paper trail, leave a little bit of knowledge saying there are no materials for this paper. And that's valuable. That's, again, valuable information. Then you will move to a section where you will scope the paper. Scoping will be, you will create your subjective assessment of what are the claims and declare these are the display items that I'm going after. This is the specification that I'm going to investigate. And then you will move into the core section will be the assessment. The assessment is the core part of the exercise where we will suggest a standardized way to assess a fraction of a paper. And then there's going to be two additional sections that if I have time, I'll talk a little bit more, but I want to focus for now on the first three. But the last two are in the same idea. We want to document the improvements that you have created. We want to document the robustness checks that you might have added. And in terms of the assessment part, we want to, again, standardize the assessment. We want everybody to be talking in the same terms. So that's why we have come out with this scale. Importantly, we want to move away from this idea of calling a paper reproducible or irreproducible. There are degrees, even within computational reproducibility, that people think, does it run or does it not run? There are nuances. It might run in certain software, in certain versions, in certain computers, with certain access to data. Once it runs, you might have a result that is qualitatively similar, but not exactly the same. And we build this scale to go from having no materials whatsoever, then to have a level 2 of having access to only the code, then the partial access to the analysis data and the code, to an intermediate level of being able to reproduce the results from the analysis data, and then having access to the cleaning code, the raw data, and then finally being able to reproduce the analysis from the raw data. Here's also another piece of subjective assessment of what distinguishes raw from analysis data. It's going to be a subjective call, and it might generate different assessment across reproducers. And we want to make that transparent. We want to make that clear that when you see these assessments of reproducibility, somebody thought that something was raw data, and another analyst thought that there was analysis data, and we want to basically put this out there for people to discuss and reach some type of consensus. For example, in today's today's presentation, the excellent presentation from Michael Stepner in the morning, I don't know if you pick up, but basically he highlight how the paper was highly reproducible. In my, if I were the assessment, I would call that the analysis data, because they cannot put up what he was calling the raw data was the data that has been already processed and aggregated up to some level from the IRS data. I would suspect that he cannot put out there the IRS data and make it public. So there could be different in judgment calls, and that could lead to different assessments. But as long as there's a public record where people can discuss and make clear what were the differences, we think this can lead to a much more constructive exchange, as opposed to basically basically claiming that you invalidated the results of a paper, or claiming that a reproducer did something completely incorrect and outrageous. That's where we want to move away from. So just to give you slightly excited about this, we're going to do a very short demo of the social science reproduction platform. I would ask you to go to this website, socialsciencereproduction.org, or in Google, you can type social science reproduction, and it's going to take you to that. I have asked you to create an account, but I will assume that some of you have not created an account, so I'm going to just give 30 seconds if somebody who has not created an account can create an account. And if you have any user experience problems, please report them back to us, because we have launched this platform about a year and a half ago, but it's a constant discovery of issues and bugs across different computers and platforms, and we want to make constantly be improving this experience. So from now, I'll stay quiet, and 60 seconds from now, we'll continue. All right, so I'm going to go to this link. This is the social science reproduction platform. I'm already logged in. You will log in here, and once you're logged in, your email is going to show up there. There are two ways in which one way in which you can start to interact right away with this and search for papers, just some keywords here, and we'll give you some results. If you type a blank search, it's going to show you every paper that has been reproduced until now. And you can go and look at the reproductions and just learn how these things look. One thing I want to highlight is that there could be more than one reproduction per paper, and we want that. We want to crowdsource, bring the wisdom of the crowds, and that many people will do different assessments and compare those. So for this paper, there's going to be 2 reproductions. Here's going to be the original reproduction materials. If they updated or added some value with a new reproduction materials, there's going to be a link here. And if you click on any given report, you're going to see a summary of the paper, a link to the paper, a link to the reproducer, if they chose to disclose their name, a DOI, a digital object identifier to the reproducer. And this is something I should have triple highlighted. This is a stable link that it's used to attribute credit. So you as a reproducer, we hope that you can put it in your CV. You can put it when applying for internships, for graduate school, for all sorts of things. You can say, hey, I have not only taken labor economics, I have reproduced paper X, Y, and Z, and you can see my reproductions here. You can see what I have focused on, what are the claims that I have assessed, what are the improvements that I have made, and things like that. And this is going to be these are going to be the reproducers' understanding of the main claims in the paper, and then the display items that the reproducer is aiming to reproduce. So they are going for table 3, and they assess a score of 9 for this one, a score of 8, a score of 9 for table 1, and a score of 8 for figure 3. And here are all the links for the original materials, for the new materials, and down here is the entire exercise. This is when you do a reproduction. This is, and you can edit it, but once you're done and you submit it, it becomes a view-only mode. It becomes a view-only mode where you can go over the entire process. So you will go to scoping section, the assessment, and once you click in here, you will see the detail of the reproduction. The goal of when we build the SSRP, we aim to make it as flexible as possible, so people can record as much information as they can. But strictly speaking, the core information that the reproducer must record is the claim, the display item, and the score that they assign to it. So one of the things we're working on right now is to make a minimal version of this, because once you go into any of these sections, there is a lot that you can add. You can, when you are describing the inputs, you can describe everything that goes in and out. This can be combined to build what we call a reproduction tree, that if the platform will take all the inputs and outputs and will show you how all these things interact together for you to identify how all the pieces go into it. But this is in the sense of adding value. It's not a requirement. But the idea is that we want to enable users to add as much value as they can. And now I just wanted to get you started with a reproduction. So I want you to go to my work, start a reproduction, and think of either a paper or a journal. Maybe it's easier to think about a journal than to think about a specific paper. Basically, a colleague of mine sent me a paper for me to look up, and I have two examples here. Here I have the Journal of Development Economics. I have a paper, I have the title, all the information, and I'm gonna say, okay, I wanna focus on this paper. I wanna start a reproduction on this paper. We're not gonna finish a complete reproduction today. We're just gonna start, okay? So, okay, I'm interested, I'm gonna start something with this paper. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna select the paper. Remember that selecting the paper is an iterative stage, so you might guess, might look for others. The first thing that we ask is for you to input the digital object identifier of the paper. So if you go to a paper here, there's the DOI. So it's always like very small, but it is a very important piece. Right there is the DOI. If there's no DOI, you can still enter the information. It's just that by entering the DOI, we increase the chances of everybody inserting the same information in a standardized way. So here I will just put the DOI. Might give me an error because of the HTTP thing, but okay, it works great. So right there's the paper, there are the authors, and now the first question before we start any exercise, and this is something I want to emphasize. When at least when I did my reproduction exercise when I was in grad school, like the instructor was like, go reproduce this paper, and that was it. It's like, I don't know, I would spend like hours, if not days, understanding the paper and then checking their materials. Here I want to change a little bit the mindset and say, before you invest any minute on this thing, is there a reproduction package? Are there any materials? So let's go and look at the paper. Let's go and look at the journal. So in the journal, basically the reproduction material will typically be either at the beginning or at the end. For this one, I have already inspected, and here basically they are describing the data sets, but there are no data sets that they can be accessed. one thing I already did was that I went to each of the first thing we advise you is to check the journal. By checking out the journal, I don't find any data set here. Okay, so I'm inclined to say no. But before I say no in whether or not these are reproduction materials, we guide you, and I forgot to show you, we have a little book that guides you through the process of a reproduction exercise. We guide you to go to the author's webpage. So I went to each of these authors and checked their web pages, and I did not find any reproduction materials for this. Okay. So the next thing that I will do for this paper is to say there are no reproduction materials available. Have I contacted the authors? Also, it could be valuable that a author that wrote a paper 20 years ago that there are no reproduction materials, they don't want to be bombarded by the same question over and over and over. Here we can create a record. I have not contacted them, but if I would have said, yeah, I have contacted them, and maybe they gave me the data, maybe they didn't. I would record it here. Given all these answers, basically, am I willing to start the reproduction materials from scratch? Right now, I'm not. So I can record this paper as abandoned. Okay. And for this specific case that I'm showing you here, I will record it as abandoned because I have already reviewed it. I would not encourage you to record as abandoned as you are doing it right now because I already invested some time in looking at the author's webpage. But I wanted to show you that basically I just recorded this thing as abandoned and I added a little bit of knowledge to the platform. I don't know if the server updates automatically. I think it takes a little bit, so it might not appear right away in the search, but for sure, by tomorrow it's gonna be, or maybe in 30 minutes. I forgot how quickly it updates, but it will be searchable that you will be able to see. For this paper there are no reproduction materials. Hence, I don't need to invest more time and go look more in depth. That's a very short, so like a way to add value. Another example that I have here. Here's a paper that has a reproduction material that I would download it here, and I would need to spend a little bit more time. I will download it, and I will have to become a little bit more familiar with the materials, spend some more time. I already did this. I don't know, it was something like 10, 20 minutes. But the thing that I want to show you, maybe I have downloaded already. I think it's this one. Yeah, so it's this one, and I already went through these materials, and I look at the README file, and it has a lot of documentation, which is great. But the main analysis, the main analysis relies on a data set that I cannot have access. So then I was thinking, okay, maybe I should record this as there's no, for sure I know that there's no raw data that I can access. But the key question is whether or not there's analysis data. And did they generate some intermediary data? Like, for example, in the case that Michael showed us in the morning, there was for sure very rich analysis data. So that would be something to work with. So I'll spend some time looking at these materials. And I read the README file that they indicate that in this folder is where they would deposit the analysis data. And right now there's nothing here. So given that, I already invested some time in here, and I can go and say, here there's code, but there's no analysis data. So right now, and this is something, a feature that we're working to improve in the next week or so. I'm not gonna record it. I have not even started an entry for it because I do want to mention that there is code before saying anything else. So we're adding a feature for reproducers to say that there is code, but there's no raw or analysis data before abandoning it. But if you don't abandon it, you start your exercise, and this is where things get excited. So here, so this is where. Okay, you have chose your paper, you have make it clear with your instructor, and you have started to work on a paper where there are some reproduction materials. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So So it can be misused. So the key point is that we want to emphasize in the platform that it's not right now the assessments they're not so like set in stone. The goal is that you can see all the assessments. So if I go and look at what you did for all of test papers, I can quickly see that there was not like much emphasis. So you went right after the paper, and we have a forum for people to discuss and go back and forth. So we don't want to take any of these scores at face value. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now you have started your project. You're working on it. Now you read the paper. You invest time in the paper. In this case, here's an example where in the results you find the claim and you identify it. Then you identify the display item that supports that claim. Then you go into a platform and record in your own word what the claim is. Then you go through a process of inspecting the materials, trying to run as much as you can and see whether it runs, whether not, it doesn't run. The platform will give you these nice diagrams for you to see how all the pieces interact with each other, and then you will add your assessment at the end. And that basically this exercise could take you anywhere between a week, 2 weeks. It could be a full semester if maybe you are starting and rebuilding all the materials from scratch, and that could be a worthwhile, for example, undergraduate thesis or something like that. We have done some tests with that, and you will improve. So you might translate the code from Stata to R, from R to Python or something like that. And here in this section, you will record all the improvements that you did. And basically, in a way, it's a way of facilitating the way of claiming credit for the improvements that you bring. I'm not going to go into the platform right now, but there's a stage that precisely captures that. There's another stage that is meant to capture robustness checks. This is the one where we need to facilitate the most the user experience here, because your robustness checks can be fairly subjective, but at the same time we want people to have the conversation in the same space. But there is a space for you to do it. And once you're done, you're gonna have this product, this thing that you can put on your CV. It's gonna be view only. You can share it, you can discuss it, you can cite it. And yeah, we just got started. We just used it a little bit. I forgot to show you, but we have this guides. So whenever you are doing anything related to the platform, if you're here, we have these guides that guides through these different stages. So there's one chapter for selecting the paper, for scoping the paper, for assessment, for improvements, for robustness, how to conclude the reproduction. There's a lot of tips for instructors on how to use these as a grading exercise, how to grade it, how to have constructive exchanges with authors. So we have, again, being English not being my first language, I could totally see being back in grad school and try to have an interaction with a senior researcher and try to tell them, like, I did something to your reproduction, with your reproduction materials, and I did not get exactly the same results. And I could totally see me writing, your paper was wrong, goodbye, because it is just easier to communicate that. So we put a ton of examples or case scenarios where you might want to send this type of email in a somewhat polite way, both sides, from the author to the instructor, from the instructor to the author to reproducer to authors. You will send them the DOI of that's the whole point, that you will have this digital object identifier that you can share with them. And I think I'm out of time, but yeah, one more question. Yeah. Yeah. Totally, absolutely. Yeah, it's called the social science reproduction platform, but it is because there's the social science registry, the social science prediction platform, and we want to be cool like them. But yeah, could be probably help for sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk more. Yeah, right now we just need to keep moving, but thank you.